I'm Ryan Fowler. I'm a clinical psychologist with a private practice in New York City. So when we look at anger, it's first important to understand one model at least for explaining how anger takes place. So typically when we talk about anger triggers, we might think about those as we look at the ABC model. So the A would be the activating event, and these are sort of the external triggers that are most oftentimes other people doing things that are against our wants and our goals. So we may be driving somewhere in quite a rush under time constraints and someone cuts us off or begins slowing down in the lane. There's a trigger that's an activating event. Second piece that might happen today, though, is for people who struggle with anger management issues, they often have what's called a hostile attribution bias. There's a tendency, even when something might be neutral or ambiguous, to assume the other person, in fact, intends to be doing harm to that person. So that's the activating event. But with those two things alone, a person still may not become that upset unless at B, so first we have the activating event, now we have the B, I have certain beliefs about that. So one of the most common is a belief that's called a demand or a should. So I believe people should always be courteous on the road. They should be keeping in mind there are people behind them and that other people may have destinations that are important as well. If I have that unconditional demand, that's likely going to exacerbate and increase my tendency at C, the emotional consequence, to become anger and to intensify that. So we have the activating event, the belief about the event or the other person, and then C, the consequences. And I'm going to give you three other irrational beliefs in the B column. So first we have a person shouldn't act that way. They should be polite and courteous under all circumstances. Second is sort of an exaggeration or a magnification of how bad or negative the event really is. So I might use words like awful or catastrophe or call it terrible. When in fact, showing up late to something, although it's an inconvenience, it certainly isn't awful when I compare it to other kinds of incidents in the world. The third might be low frustration tolerance, and this is really an underestimation of my own capacity to cope with the situation. So sentences like, I can't tolerate this, I can't stand this is unbearable. Really, those are not logical or realistic because in fact, I've been in lots of traffic jams, I've been made late numerous times, and I've withstood it every single time. But what we know is when clients come in with anger management issues and they tell themselves repeatedly they can't stand this event, they can't stand how aversive this is, in fact what happens is their anger intensity in the consequence column comes up. Finally, one of the most common, it's been shown by research, for people who have anger management issues is a global evaluation of worth. And in the case of anger, it's most frequently basically an inflammatory label put on that other person. So this person shouldn't have cut me off, they should always be polite and courteous, this is really horrible, I can't stand it, and that person is a total jerk or some expletive. And that kind of inflammatory label is highly associated with people who have intense anger at other people. So we have the activating event, the belief about the event or the other person, and finally the emotional consequence and the ABC model of anger.